Welcome to the Real Estate and Wealth Podcast, your go-to resource for navigating the world of real estate investing and wealth creation. This podcast is brought to you by Calvert Home Mortgage Investment Corporation, your trusted, caring, and responsive short-term mortgage lender in Alberta and Ontario. We explore strategic and tactical solutions to elevate your real estate portfolio, drawing insights from seasoned Canadian investors and trusted advisors. In each episode, we dive into various aspects of real estate investing, including market trends, property analysis, financing strategies, risk management, and much more. Whether you're a seasoned real estate investor looking to expand your portfolio or a beginner taking those first steps, this podcast is for you. Today on the podcast, we have Dan Van Helden from Helden Agencies. Super excited for today's conversation, learn all about insurance. Dan, I'll let you introduce yourself, essentially give us an overview of obviously yourself and the agency.
Okay, yeah. Well, Garrett, Ryan, thanks for having me on today. It's a pleasure to be here and talk about some insurance for real estate investors. So I am part of Van Helden Agencies. So we're a fourth generation family owned insurance brokerage. We deal in property and casualty insurance. And I'm actually a geologist by trade. I found oil and gas for a little while before getting into the insurance industry. I worked for number of companies in Calgary. We were drilling in Alberta and in Colombia. And then it was time for me to go into the insurance business. So I worked for Chubb Insurance for 3 years. I was underwriting oil and gas companies, doing downhole drilling programs and pipeline liabilities. And then it was time for me to join the family business. So I started at Van Helden 6 years ago. We primarily work with high net worth families and we help our Calvert out with their clients' insurance needs.
Perfect. Geologist. I never knew that about you.
Yeah.
Interesting. What was the passion behind that?
So my dad's actually a geologist, and going on hikes in the summertime in the mountains, he would always point out rock formations and, we look at fossils. So always had interest. And then, I guess how geologists operate in Calgary, and have a bunch of family friends whose parents are geologists, and I always found it interesting to find modern day treasure using science to find oil and gas, but it's obviously a very cyclical business in nature. So decided to go with something a little more steady in insurance.
Makes sense.
Awesome. When was the company started?
So Van Helden was started in 1950 by my great grandpa, and my grandpa took it over, then my dad, and now me.
Amazing. So how many staff do you have? And
so there are 15 of us right now. So it's a mix between brokers and we call them customer service reps, and some management in there too.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So whenever you get in, say, an insurance inquiry, I've been very interested on what that looks like on the back end, on how you find the best policy for the client. Maybe give an overview of that.
Yeah. So we typically, we would schedule a call with potential clients, and we'd go through some information. So we would spend 10 minutes going through underwriting information. And then we reach out to our insurance companies that deal with these specific risks, whether it's, a rented dwelling or a course of construction, like a flip project. And we basically scan the market for the best available rates and coverages. And we put together a proposal and then present it to the client and go over the coverages, make sure, everything's in there that needs to be. We try to satisfy the client as well as satisfy the lender.
So is it mostly residential stuff or commercial too? Or
Yep. So we do lots of commercial business.
Okay.
And then we obviously do lots of residential. So
we just know you do a lot of residential for us. So I wasn't sure if you did the commercial side or not.
Yeah. So
great.
Full commercial offering as well.
Great. Like, what would you say is one of the key points that separates you from other insurance brokerages?
Yeah. So what we focus on is, one, we hire people that have lots of experience. When you call, they're going to answer and provide expert advice. Our employees tend to stay with Van Helden for a long time. So there's not a lot of turnover. Usually you'll have the same person you're dealing with for a long time, for many years. And then we pay special attention to customer service. So it's more of a white glove approach where when you call in, someone's going to answer the phone. There's no hold times. We get back emails right away. That's our main differentiation. And I think we just have that expert advice. Like we take it, we take it very seriously, and we want to do best by our clients and our business partners as well. So that would be our main differentiation.
So each client typically has their own rep at your company?
So we actually do it by alphabet split. So depending what your last name is who you'll be talking to. And then you'll be talking to that person each and every time you call in.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's good to build those relationships.
For sure.
And I think that's super important.
Definitely. How do insurance policies differ? Like if you're a real estate investor buying a rental property versus a primary residence, is there any differentiation of policies?
Yes. There'd be different coverages involved, as well as different insurance companies are more comfortable with different risks. So for example, on like rental dwellings, there would be, rental income insurance. So if there was a covered loss and your tenants were out of the building for an extended period of time, or they had to, break their lease, there would be coverage for that loss in rental income, where a typical homeowner's policy wouldn't have that coverage on it. But as far as property damage and third-party liability, those would remain fairly consistent. Where property damage, if there's something that happens to the actual structure of the home, that would be covered under these policies, as well as third-party liability. So we would separate third-party liability out into two sections. It would be third-party property damage as well as third-party bodily injury. So for example, let's say you have tenants in your rented property and they cause a kitchen fire, and that kitchen fire spreads to the home and it also damages other units or even damages other detached homes. That would be picked up under the third party liability for property damage. And then bodily injury, we would see it'd be like a slip and fall. Like if someone's on your property and they injured themselves, the sidewalk wasn't shoveled, or maybe a railing was missing on the stairs and they hurt themselves, they have recourse through the courts to sue for bodily injury, and then that would be picked up under that third-party liability coverage.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Every situation's very different.
Yeah, very different. But, in the event of a claim, another differentiator that we would have is that we're very involved in the claim. So we're working with the adjusters, working with the clients to come out to the best possible end result.
Mm-hmm. Using an example, I know obviously it's very situational, but say you had a sewer backup. It needs to get fixed. It's $30,000. What does that process kind of look like in order to submit a claim? And then what does it look like for future policies, and how claims impact future policies in terms of price?
So always say contact me or contact your rep before making a claim. If a sewer backup happens, we're most likely going to put the claim through. And then I'll touch on additional coverages. So what that would look like is you call Van Helden, tell us what happened, and we'll put that claim in. So we'll contact the insurance company and we'll start a claim for the client. The adjuster will usually contact the client within 24 to 48 hours. We definitely try to push for sooner rather than later. Once the adjuster contacts the client, there's information exchanged. And then they'll get a disaster company to come in and clean up the mess. And so once that claim is started, then, everything going forward, the client is working with the adjuster to, get a contractor in there to get the repairs done and to get, either tenants back in there as soon as possible, or just, get that property fixed as soon as possible. And then as far as for future rating, so for smaller claims, it might not be economical to actually go through with the claim because rates will increase in future years. We typically see rates increase for about 6 years after a claim. So it makes sense to put in larger claims and might not make as much sense to put in smaller claims. And we can work with the deductibles, to save on premium each year if that is the intent for the insurance to put in larger claims. But yeah, call us before making a claim and we'll discuss the economics, because sometimes it just doesn't make sense to put one through.
Okay. And then in terms of the industry providers, would they deem that client more risky if they've submitted multiple claims, or how do they view someone who's submitted multiple claims or someone who's?
Yeah, I think, I mean, the underwriters are looking at the loss history and then comparing that to the premium that they've taken in each year. So if that ratio is high, then potentially there would be no coverage within the marketplace. Like they wouldn't actually offer terms. So if you have too many claims, potentially coverage won't be available, or the coverage will be very expensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm always curious how other industries assess risk and
yeah,
adjust premiums, increase them, decrease them based off of clients, just from obviously working in lending to see how other people assess
our
risk.
Personal knowledge of wanting to notice in the future what to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Totally.
Obviously, a lot of our clients flip properties.
Mm-hmm.
What features or features, benefits that you would recommend clients who are flipping properties, need a policy extremely short term, recommend have them on their policy?
We have our process down, we have it down pat. So, we're seeing quote turnaround times potentially 6 minutes right now. But as far as coverages, first and foremost, they need to satisfy their lender's requirements. So they need coverage on the existing structure. Okay. So this is where we can, I guess some misunderstandings or maybe some kind of headaches that we find is the market value for the home is different than the insurance value. So the replacement cost value of the home. So market value, what you pay for it, the replacement cost or the coverage for the existing structure it's a factor of cost of materials and cost of labor. So we run a industry approved tool to come up with the appropriate replacement cost for the existing structure. So that's the most important coverage to get right on the policy. What insurers will do is they will actually penalize their clients for being underinsured. So if you have a home that's worth $500,000 in replacement costs, and we've went through the information, we have determined that would be close to $500,000 to repair or to replace, but the client actually underinsures it to save on premium. Well, in the event of a total loss or a partial loss, the insurance company won't give that full claim settlement. They'll deduct it because you're being underinsured. So it's very important to work with the broker to come up with a replacement cost that is going to satisfy that co-insurance requirement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, as you know, lots of our clients are doing these flips and different real estate investments, and lots of them have moved over to your services because it is a challenging product to insure, and most of them need it within a day. So can you talk to the speed and how quickly you're able to put a policy in front of people?
Yeah, we can do it within 6 to 7 minutes. If everything goes smoothly, if there are multiple lenders or multiple additional insureds, potentially, a contractor that doesn't have a commercial general liability policy, which I can touch. Then we would go through some more underwriting. We would talk to the actual underwriters, and we would tell more of a story to get a proposal across the board. But if everything runs smoothly, we can put a policy in place very quickly.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because, speed is the name of the game in real estate investing. And a lot of times people are working with a certain broker or just directly to an insurance company, and they can't get the policy in time. So we've had to direct them your way to get those done quickly.
No, and thanks to Calvert for sending over so much business, but it's been a learning process for us, just having touched so many files and then working with the insurance companies to know which companies are comfortable with which risks. So we're able to navigate it a lot easier because we've seen so many.
Yeah. And I assume the condition of the property, when insurance companies see a property, say it's a hoarder house or something, and there's a bunch of junk in it, but the structure's sound, does that change their viewpoint on it?
It does. Yeah. I mean, some companies will ask for pictures of the outside as well as the inside. I think there are certain companies that will take on the risk, when there's a bunch of junk in the home, but some companies, they don't want to insure that. Like in their eyes, more can go wrong with those homes. So ideally they want to be presentable from the outside and the inside for a proposal to be generated.
But you can still do them.
We can. we can.
Yeah.
We can do them.
Yeah. I figured there's certain companies that would do them, but that's why it's important to, I would say, work with an insurance broker who has those options available to them.
Yeah.
What would you say are some of the top 5 things that impact policy pricing?
Policy pricing would be, size of the home. So if the replacement cost of the home is higher, there's going to be more premium. Previous insurance history. So if there have been prior claims, that is going to impact the pricing. If you're hiring a contractor that has lots of experience doing renovations, they have a good reputation, they have a commercial general liability policy in place, that is only going to help pricing. If you have monitored burglar and fire alarms, that's going to provide a discount. That will affect pricing. And then, if there are more than one mortgage on the property, that's also going to affect pricing.
Yeah, because they just view it as more risk.
Yeah, there's a little more risk in payments. Like the idea is, if there's more than one mortgage, this obviously isn't the case all the time, but the idea is, they might not pay their policy premium.
Yeah, interesting. In terms of the landscape, like who are the top players for just insurance providers?
Yeah, so in this space particularly, we access what are called managing general agents, which have pools of capital in London, in the UK, that are comfortable insuring flip projects as well as rented dwellings on the commercial and the residential side. So we use a company all the time called Forward Insurance. I'm sure you've seen them on the letterhead quite often, or on the binder letters. We use Premium Marine Insurance quite often, as well as CanSure. Now, there is one, I guess, piece of advice. If you have a homeowner's policy with a domestic market, so like Aviva, Intact, Travelers, Wawanisa, companies like that, sometimes you're able to add these rented dwelling properties onto the homeowner's policy. So that would be a piece of advice to your clients. If they, if they're in a pinch and, we're not available, and they have homeowners insurance through another company, they can sometimes add the rented dwelling to that policy. With the flip projects, it gets a little bit more, I guess, complicated, where many domestic companies, they don't want to insure the flips. They're a lot of the time short-term policies. So, 3 months, 4-month renovations, it's just not within their appetite to insure those properties.
Yeah, I always find it interesting how different, everyone just how the whole industry works and where the capital comes from and who the key.
And where are you able to access insurance policies? All in Canada, or?
So we are licensed throughout Canada. We are licensed in BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, and then I would have to double check in the Maritimes. We're not licensed in Quebec or the territories. We have capability to place business in the US as well. We don't see many kind of flip projects or rented dwelling, like standalone projects in the US. That would be more for our high net worth clientele, or and some commercial business where the company is domiciled within Canada. There are capabilities there. And then we work with broker partners in the US that can handle stuff that we can't.
Do you have any stories of clients who made a claim that either just any stories in regards to learning lessons of what you've seen clients go through and maybe do's and don'ts?
Yeah. So we had one, this is actually a client of yours. I won't mention any names, but this was recently within the last couple of weeks, and client called or emailed me 11:30 p.m. Luckily I was awake, but ended up calling the client. This is for a rental property. There was some sewer backup and he was concerned, the tenants would be, out of the home. He's wondering, what's going on with his insurance. So we looked through the policy, we discussed the claim, and we decided to put one through. So we got a hold of an after hours adjuster, and the adjuster called the client, within an hour, got the information and got the claim started right away. So it was a success story, but we deal with this stuff all the time. Like, we're in the business of paying claims. Essentially, that's why people buy insurance, in case something happens, they want that claim to be paid. So, we're on it right away. We're CC'd on all emails from adjuster and client, and we're monitoring to see if there's any problems. Yeah.
Interesting.
Any do's or don'ts when it comes to the insurance policies and whatnot, or to do with properties?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like work with a broker. I think that's your safeguard to getting the best coverage and fulfilling lenders' requirements. Having claims advocacy, like just making sure that you're covered. Let us know when things change. Like if the home's sold, we need to know that it's sold. And we'll be on top of you to see, to kind of check in what's going on. But if there's a renovation going on, oftentimes we'll have a course of construction policy in place. And then if the renovation is done, we would need to change the policy to a vacant land policy. So it's important to keep us in the loop when things change. Just present accurate information. Obviously, that goes without saying. We don't want to get into a situation where there is misrepresentation and the insurance, something happens, there's a claim, and the insurance company saying, well, you didn't tell us about this. We're not
poly piping when you said there was copper.
Yeah, like we're not sure, you've breached the contract. So we're now in a position where we could deny the claim. So
I'm just curious from my own knowledge. Because we don't do a lot of construction. Yeah. But like, I'm wondering, like, say someone's buying a house, like a tear down, that's on a lot, and they buy it. Lender, as we would want fire insurance right away, just in case something happened. But then they tear it down 2 days later, and then don't build for, let's say, a week. Do they have to get fire, then vacant land liability insurance, and then course of construction right after? Like,
so we can work through that. I mean, yes, that could be the case. We would work with the underwriter. For sure, we would not have the homeowner's insurance on it when, it's a tear down. But we could potentially, we could circumvent the vacant land depending on the circumstance to have a course of construction policy in place.
Right.
Depends on timing, but if the land is bare for an extended period of time, then we'd want to have that vacant land.
It's probably less expensive anyways, right? So
I mean, it's just the liability, right? But that's also a question for you guys. So when there is a planned demolition, there's not really a huge need for the fire insurance because it's being demolished anyways. So from a lending perspective, you want to ensure that your investment is being properly insured. But if it's being demolished in a month or in 2 months, there's not a huge need to insure the property, because even if it does, suffer a total loss by fire, it's going to be demolished.
Yeah, like,
right?
I totally get the question. We get it all the time.
Yeah.
Because they're like, we're going to demolish this. But there's nothing in our contract that states they have to demolish it. Right. And there's nothing stating that they're going to do it right away. Like, it's not like in the contract. So what if they just left it? And we actually have an instance, like, I think it was quite a while back, but one client was pushing back on us about fire insurance on a teardown. It was a terrible house, very hard to insure. Just by chance, there was a fire, like right after.
Yeah.
And they got the insurance, and they were super thankful that they did, because they got some money back from that.
Yeah.
So got some money back, and then they demoed.
Well, yeah, they were going to demo it anyways, but they got the fire insurance in place, and probably, I don't know, it was a long time back, but they were going to keep it for a little bit and then demo it, then build. But yeah, there's just the risk that they don't. So we always require fire insurance if there's a structure on the property.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, just from an underwriting perspective and risk.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
In terms of market share, do you see in the next, 10, 15 years, the bigger players getting bigger? Do you see smaller companies starting to emerge and having
creative insurance products?
I think there will always be room for new entrants, just like if we continue on like a, free market system. Like I think, companies will continue to be creative. There will always be appetite for this type of risk as long as these projects, keep getting done. So I do foresee, new entrants to the marketplace, every couple of years, especially when rates start to increase and they see an opportunity to maybe come in at a lower rate and then pick up some market share. So that's oftentimes what we see in the industry, where we would call them hard and soft markets. So when there's a lot of when the pool of capital is tight, we would see rates increase. And then when the rates increase to a certain threshold, new entrants will come into the marketplace and start to decrease those rates. Mm-hmm. So it's an ebb and flowing market dynamic. But at the same time, the larger companies, they're aware of this and they price appropriately. So they will continue to pick up market share. There's no question. But there will be room for new entrants who are looking to make a splash in the space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have any concerns on like the increasing natural disasters that are occurring in particularly BC? We're not in BC, but I know some insurance companies have pulled out of certain areas, right? Because of the risk of those disasters.
I mean, we've seen, I think the property book across the board has seen rate increases. For homeowners, I mean, I'm sure you guys have felt the rate increases on your homes or, your condos. And that is largely because of natural disasters. So the second largest Canadian natural disaster as far as insurance claims goes just happened this summer. It was the hailstorm in the northern part of Calgary. So that was the second largest insurance claim payout catastrophe in Canadian history. And so the frequency of these catastrophic events, it puts a burden on the insurance industry. It puts a burden on the pool of capital that pays out the claims. And so rates increase. So we definitely have been seeing an industry trend that way.
Yeah. And from that, I'm assuming that people who work with a broker would have quicker access to submit claims and get money back, normally. Maybe not all the time, but I'm assuming that you have ways of contacting their people in a different way.
That's exactly right. So we work very closely with the insurance companies. We know what levers to pull. We know who to contact to get things done. Where, if you're working directly with an insurance company as a client, there might be a conflict of interest. If you're working directly, that company is insuring your property as well as paying out, and there's no intermediary. So there's no help to get paid out unless you hire a third party consultant.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a really good point.
Yeah.
Someone who's looking to buy their first property, what would you say the top 3 crucial steps that you would recommend in order to just ensure it's a seamless process to get
an inspection? We need to understand, the different materials in the home for plumbing and for electrical. We need to understand, when the roof was last replaced, the quality of the furnace. Those things are all important underwriting information, as well as just the quality of the home. And one sticking point for most insurance companies is poly B piping. If there's poly B piping, it's prone to leaking. You saw it installed in Canada in the 90s. That's kind of when contractors were putting it in.
Yeah, I had it. I'm aware.
So it's important. Yeah. It's important to understand, the bones of the home.
So can you insure those?
You can. Yeah.
You can. It's just more expensive. But what if a lot of our flippers buy these homes?
Yeah.
So we already know their plan is to get rid of that.
Yeah.
If they do that in a timely manner, there's...
Exactly. Oftentimes, when we're talking with the underwriters about the poly B, they'll ask, okay, well, is there plans to replace it? And if there is plans to replace it, then that opens up more of the market to get an insurance policy.
Anything? I don't have any more questions.
No?
Yeah. think this was awesome. Great. Just really good to know. Because obviously insurance is super crucial. Yeah. Anything we didn't touch on that you think would be good to know?
Yeah, I think maybe just some common misconceptions. So the process is simple. Like, we need a bit of information. We can get policies in place quickly. We touched on that. There are 3-month policies are available. So you don't have to lock into a year-long contract. You can go 3 months. And then if it ends up taking longer, we can put extensions in place for a month at a time. So it gives some flexibility there. Airbnb, short-term rentals, insurance companies are becoming more comfortable with those risks. So we're able to put policies in place for those.
It's good to know.
Are there any premiums for having a shorter term policy versus an annual policy?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. So it would just be kind of like prorated based on the annual. Yeah, I think, and taking a look at additional coverages, sewer backup is important. If you're in BC, earthquake insurance might be important. Mm-hmm. Really, like overland water, flooding insurance can be important. So it's just, important to talk to your broker, ask about these additional coverages, see if you need them, and then determine if the premium is worth the coverage.
Yeah. Okay, you mentioned now I got to go into this because I have to talk about it. But the overland flood insurance, like that's been a big thing for lenders, and from a risk perspective, homes that are in the floodway or the flood fringe, those are ones that typically people are less inclined to lend on because of their marketability and concerns over what could happen.
Yeah.
What does that overland flood insurance cover, and how does it work?
Yeah, so essentially it covers property damage resulting from overland water flooding. And overland water flooding can be defined by insurance companies differently. It can be defined by, if a body of water overflows and causes damage to your property, or if there's a rainstorm and water pools next to your home and finds its way in and causes damage to your property. Certain insurance companies define it differently, but we can, we have a good pulse on what is covered in each contract. So, definitely is worth the conversation. The floodplain is tricky.
Yeah.
It's tricky, especially for these like flip projects. We oftentimes don't see coverage available in the floodplain for this. For homeowners policies, there are companies that they have an appetite for insuring those risks. So it's not an issue right now in the marketplace to insure homes in the floodplain, but for flip projects, it's a bit different.
Yeah. So homeowners could get it.
Homeowners can get it.
And no matter if it's in the floodway or flood fringe, anything like that.
I would say for 90% of homes in the flood fringe, in the floodway, they can get it. There are certain areas where you just can't get it.
It's deemed too high risk.
It's just too high risk. Yeah.
Hypothetically speaking, say there was a few days down the road, there's supposed to be a massive storm. Could you, in theory, get this insurance policy so then you're covered and then take it off a week later? Like, what does that look like?
You can remove coverages.
Yeah.
You can remove coverages midterm.
But maybe they're less inclined to provide it when they know something big is coming.
I think so. In an example like that, you have you don't know for a fact that that storm's coming and that storm is going to cause damage. Where I don't want to muddy the waters in this here is you never want to misrepresent things when we're setting up contracts with insurance companies. You want to be as honest as possible. But for if you're worried about a storm, storm causing damage to your home, then by all means, you should purchase the appropriate coverages. And then if you say, hey, it's we don't need this in a couple months, call us and we can discuss what it would look like to remove that coverage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome,
perfect. People are interested in learning more, or they want
reach out to you.
Yeah, where do they recommend?
We have a website, www.vanheldenagencies.com, and then you can reach out to Garrett and Ryan for my contact information, and happy to set up a call.
Perfect. Really appreciate the time. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you guys. No, this was great.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
That wraps up another episode of the Real Estate and Wealth Podcast. Be sure to hit that like button, share with fellow real estate enthusiasts, and subscribe to stay in the loop on all upcoming episodes. Get in touch with the team at Calvert Home Mortgage Investment Corporation by calling them at 1-888-752-4642 or email admin@chmic.ca. The opinions expressed in each episode belong to the individuals featured and do not represent the views of Calvert Home Mortgage. While we provide valuable insights, consulting with qualified professionals ensures that your unique financial circumstances are carefully considered, aligning your investments with your long-term objectives. Calvert Home Mortgage Investment Corporation is not a financial advisor, and we cannot advise you on making investments. There are risks to investing in real estate and the potential that you can lose all of your investment.